Good evening and welcome. This is Africa News Network First Fast Live. Good to have you on this Thursday evening. My name is Cindy Mabi. Our top story at 6:30 Central African Time. A reigning Miss South Africa, Demi Lee Now Peters, has been attacked on social media for wearing medical gloves while on a winter soup drive at a children's home in Orlando, Soweto. A picture on her official Twitter page shows her wearing medical gloves serving food to black children, eating and engaging with them. Twitter users did not take lightly to seeing those pictures and started questioning why she wore gloves, even digging up her older pictures of her assisting Knysna firefighters without any gloves on. She's been lambasted for what has been termed racial behavior. And here are some of the harsh comments directed at Miss South Africa. One says, why is Miss South Africa wearing surgical gloves though? And that's at Flo Ledwaba. And she could do more damage to the kids. They aren't they worth a physical contact? And worst representation of South Africa, someone who can't even touch black children. And that's from Bandile Currency. And why is Miss SA wearing gloves, or care to share rather? Hashtag the Maslow South Kitchen. At Nomfi says, and how do we explain this? Inomodao says, maybe we're just focusing on one side of the story without knowing all the facts. PS, I'm not defending her. And that's at Force1TG. Now, Miss South Africa has taken to social media with a video explaining her situation.
Hi everyone, I'm making this video with regards to the Maslow Soup Drive that I supported today as a volunteer. I just want to clear something out. All the volunteers on site wore gloves today because we honestly thought that it's the right thing to do while working with food and while handing out food to young kids. That was our only intention with wearing the gloves, was purely to be as hygienic as possible. And I really feel that my intentions were completely misunderstood. To me, the model of the story of today was that 300 kids got a proper warm lunch, and they got that with or without gloves. So I am a bit saddened that my intentions were taken up completely wrong, and I really apologize if I offended anybody. It definitely was not my intention, and I'm sorry about that. I really hope that you can see my heart.
We'll take your calls on 011-542-2186 or join us on social media regarding the latest on Miss South Africa, a representative of our beautiful nation. And we're joined by Botsang Moilwa, political analyst. Mosiri Tsiane is an attorney, a lawyer with Mosiri and Associates. And joining us also is Thulaganyo Modisane, educator, author and speaker on the phone. We'll start with you, Botsang. Good to have you again. Good evening.
Good evening, Cindy, and good evening once more to the ANN7 viewers.
Yeah, I mean, the Miss South Africa title and role is a very prestigious, hugely responsible role that a young lady takes on. The last thing she needs, not even half year through her reign, is this kind of publicity. What do you make out of it?
Well, as you have said, it is a very prestigious role. It is an entrant to the Miss World pageant, competition. And sadly, unfortunately, in this instance, I've listened to her video for the first time this evening, and I'm saying she looks apologetic. She's trying her level best, and I think her PR should have done that, not her herself. That it was not the intention. But Cindy, again, and I've said this before, the problem in South Africa is we have this rainbow nation that's fake. We have racism that has been put under the table or under the carpet. And I've said before that racism in South Africa is structural, and it's a white thing. Racism was never being brought all over the world. It was never brought by black people. It was brought by white people. It's an European white thing. And sometimes white people tend to behave and conduct themselves in a manner that demonstrates racism when they did not have the intention to do so. But it is because it is instilled within them. They grew up in that manner. I still do not know, after listening to the video, why did the current Miss South Africa wear gloves in going to feed black children. I've seen photos of her with white children, like you have mentioned, Knysna, and there were no gloves worn. But I must be honest and I must give her credit. I have seen a picture very late this afternoon where she was with black children somewhere else and she didn't have gloves on. So it actually puts it into a predicament to say she was racist when I've seen her in a picture of her in a kindergarten or a crèche and she didn't have gloves on. But the explanations given, you know, they don't justify what has happened. I still do not know why in this particular day, in this particular instance, she was wearing medical surgical gloves. I still don't have an answer.
But because there will be any protocol, especially when it comes to hygiene and how you prepare food, depending on the dietary requirements, perhaps, of your audience. You know, there may be people that are allergic to whatever food source, that those must not be mixed, and therefore the requirements to be extra cautious and vigilant when you serve those people.
That's why at the beginning I said she should have not handled this public debate or apology. PR should have handled it in order to explain why on that particular day, at that particular event or location, was she wearing a surgical or medical gloves. They could have given a proper reason, because I've seen one tweet or post where somebody was saying she was sick on that particular day. Probably she actually was defending the children she was serving food or she was associating with. And then another person came in, you know, social media, and said if she was sick, then she should have stayed at home and not expose her sickness to the children. But we don't know. There could have been, as you said, Cindy, medical reasons. She may be allergic to some of the food or nuts, whatever that was served there, but her PR is not doing well. We don't know why was she wearing medical gloves.
Yeah, we take calls on 011-542-2186 or on social media. Shirley, you are first caller on this. Good evening to you and welcome. Is this a storm in a teacup, or do you think Miss South Africa is misunderstood and that her PR company may have failed her?
No, hi Cindy. Good evening to you and the viewers. No, not misunderstood at all. Maybe people should learn how many different bacteria we carry under our nails. And I'm speaking now as a so-called white person, since there's so much racist remarks made from white to blacks. First of all, we brown and we cream. The colors complement each other. When people work with food, hotels, anywhere, they use gloves. That's how it's done, so as not to pass on any germs. Poor kids.
Yeah.
That are in a feeding scheme. You know what filth they've got to live in. I've had a big debate here in Port Elizabeth. The filth doesn't get picked up. There's no tarred roads. But poor Miss South Africa gets hit because she's wearing gloves so as to prevent. That's the way it's done.
Yeah, Shirley, and I understand we live in a very polarized, politically polarized society, and it's regretful that you feel that you're being targeted for being white. But the point is consistency as well, because yes, Miss South Africa was cautious and practiced hygiene standards. But in other occasions, she didn't wear gloves. So how do you blame Twitter then for making the comparisons? Where in the Knysna the fire damage or the disaster there, she was also seen assisting without wearing gloves and preparing food. So I think people are just comparing the two and saying why in this particular instance and not in the other.
I just think, in this world, and I mean, I work with my two colleagues who are brown, and in this world, it's politicians that create racism, and the media. No offense to you, Cindy, but the media. My son the other night asked me, why do I watch ANN7? Because it's owned by the Guptas. I said, what? And then I realized that once again, there's racist remarks. No, you know, when we all go for Save SA, all of us together, there's no racism. None. It's politicians that create racism. They want it.
All right, Shirley, thanks so much. We really, really appreciate it. And no offense taken, by the way. We are thick-skinned. But thank you so much for watching. We have Milekaya in the Eastern Cape. Good evening. Kunjani nakuwe bhuti?
No, I think, Cindy, you can't serve, my understanding, you can't serve food with surgical gloves. Whatever the intention is there, I think the analysis is correct to say this must have been handled by the Public Relations Department of the Miss South Africa person, not her to come to us and apologize. We have been known that for a fact She has visited other institutions and served children there without wearing, Cindy, any protective things like gloves. Why now, when he's serving people or children in the Hassan Center, because that is a black community, and you can see that the children are not very happy if you look at them. You know, you can't serve food with surgical gloves. That is for surgical procedures. I understand so. Maybe somebody else can come also and correct me. But when it comes to food, as I understand it, on medical terms, you use surgical gloves.
But Melikaya, can we just reduce this then to being a racist behavior? Personally, from Miss South Africa, she has come out to apologize. But how do you perceive it, or how do you interpret the two different scenarios where she was serving food on both occasions, but in one without any protective gloves?
I can take it as very racist. To be correct, Cindy, that's a very racist statement to me. That is, I mean, personally. We tend to say, because this South Africa, we only saw the late President Nelson Mandela. We took everything as if everything is good. Whereas the people on the floor, we have not been accepted by whites, and whites have not accepted us. As the analyst correctly put it, the white people were made to believe that we are not human beings,
all right,
but we are animals.
All right, Enkosi kakhulu bhuti siyabulela. Ubaba Khumalo is calling us from Soweto. Good evening, Sanbonani, and thanks so much for joining us. Baba Khumalo ninjani?
Siyaphila mabi mntanami unjani?
Hayi singezwa nina siyabonga.
Yebo, angiqale nje ngokubonga isikhathi benaso la kwi-commission nisebenza kanzima nisibonisa konke.
Siyabonga baba.
Yebo. Ngicela ukungena kulo daba Sindi. Today I will try my level best to speak in English ukuze abantu bangizwe nababaningi. Sindi kusho nje ake ngithi nje uma sesiphindela back ku-history yethu, this thing is very touching to us. I used to work Sindi as a waiter for so many years along. In the early 80s as a waiter, but it was always a problem, always something yayikhona until today. Thina ama-waiter abantu abamnyama were forced ukufaka ama-glove amhlophe emaseva amatafula belungu. So now, what it does to us today, it still takes us back. Noma ngabe kade mhlawumbe yenza umsebenzi omuhle lo mntwana, kodwa-ke it takes us back, isikhumbuza lokho vele ukuthi cha umuntu omnyama ungcolile mayiphambi kwabamhlophe. So-ke angeke ngiyithathe ne-apology yakhe noma sekusho mhlawumbe zabo kuyilolonga enandisa laphaya. It looks very bad. She should have conducted herself in a good manner njengoba phela umuntu oku-public. So ngale akakho ku-private space, she should have conducted herself akwazi ukwenza makade egula njengoba beshwa abanye imedia besho njalo, she should have stayed away from those things.
Siyabonga kakhulu baba Khumalo. So amanxeba awakapholi. So basically saying that, you know, he's reminded of the darker days of apartheid when black waiters had to wear white gloves when serving white people. Again, it's the symbolism and not necessarily the intention that we're questioning this evening. We have Mapopa on the line. Good evening to you. Hi Mapopa.
Good evening.
Hello. Oh,
Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, good evening, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm okay.
And
but we are really feeling very sad that Miss South Africa is practicing racism. My opinion is that they must take the prize and give to the first princess, because is trying to separate the country. We were supporting by all means. We support her. That is our princess. And then what we're doing there, it's not acceptable. Anybody won't accept it. I think also they will feel the same thing. If it's a black, when you wear a gloves when it's going to the white, they're going to have the same opinions. So they must take away his prize and ban him to the modeling.
Mapopoma siyabonga kakhulu. Thanks so much. We also have Manelisi from the VAR and our guest on the line, Thulaganyeo Modisane, educator and author. We're coming to you. We'll start with Manelisi. Good evening to you and thanks for joining us. Hi Manelisi.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Manelisi from the VAR.
Yes sir.
Yes.
Please turn down your TV set. Yeah, it's giving us feedback and delaying the conversation. Yeah.
Number one thing, Cindy. I don't want to say this thing. It's a racist act, but I want to say that it's a very disrespectful act of.
Oh, I'm afraid we lost Manelisi there, but I think we get the gist of it, that it's unfortunate in how it is being interpreted, that it seems disrespectful and not equal treatment for all persons. Let's get Thulaganyo. Thanks so much for your patience. And what is your take on just what the callers have said, Mam Shirley and others, lambasting the fact that she is a representative of all of us, and that, the gloves in itself is symbolic of some form of discrimination or dislike of where she was?
Okay, thank you very much, Cindy. I'm fully aware that, when it comes to racism, it really is definitely a controversial issue. More so, it's sensitive towards us as South Africans. But I think it's very important also to highlight the fact that, Miss SA did clearly come out to the media, social medias rather, really apologizing that in any way, if it somehow came out being portrayed as being racist, she apologized on that. And I think for me, that on its own, it takes tenacity, it takes guts. And sometimes as South African, sadly, we tend to blow things into certain proportions where it is really, really unnecessary and very irrelevant. For me, I think it's very injustice to portray her as being racism solely based on the fact that she was seen wearing gloves on one hand, and on the other, she was not wearing gloves. I'm fully aware that as South Africans, we have a very long way to discuss more, especially about this racism topics. But I think we need to come to a place where we really learn to really identify who is a person who is racist. I mean, we can't just try to mock somebody or deliberately try to sabotage somebody solely based on something that we're not even sure of. Why was she wearing gloves on one hand and on the other hand she was not wearing gloves?
Yeah, but how do you locate the freedom of expression on social media, as you're saying that our intention is also not to condemn or make any judgment on this? It's just the reaction that we're seeing on social media on how others have seen this particular gesture as being a racial behavior, as opposed to it being for medical reasons or whatever other rationale.
I mean, look, yes, definitely one cannot dispute the fact that in South Africa we have the right to express our views and our opinions. But I think most importantly, we also need to realize that for the reason that we have a freedom of expression, we need to learn to use our freedom of expression in a very wise and very dignified manner. I mean, we've come to a point where really now it's so disappointing in a sense that we are starting to deviate from one another. It's as if we are taking back ourselves to back in the apartheid ways, white versus black people. Meanwhile, we should be standing to this uniform of we need to be one collective country that stands up for each other, whether we are whites, whether we're black, or whatever the case. So I think we really need to educate ourselves as South Africans to really just tone ourselves down in regards to when is the right time to really argue about situations of racism. And at this current moment, I really feel so strong that this is not the right time to put Miss South Africa down and sort of like label her to be a very nasty individual. Meanwhile, she emphasizes that her intention was really not to offend anyone.
Thulaganyo Modisane, thank you so much, educator, author, and speaker as well, joining us on the line. We have two callers, Kaya in Durban and Matt in Joburg. Good evening to you, Kaya.
Hello, and good evening to both as well. I would just like to comment on the previous lady named Ms. Modisane. It is not us as black people who are putting South Africa down. It's this kind of behavior that is making us black people feel that I think we are trying too hard to create this rainbow nation, and the other races are not coming to the party. That's number one. Number two, your first caller, Shirley, she just went on defensive mode in terms of justifying the fact that you wear latex gloves to serve food. As far as I'm concerned, she could have used disinfectant to make sure that her hands are clean properly before she goes and serves the food. So this defensive mode of people doing racist acts and then coming tomorrow to apologize and then other people defending them is nonsensical. It has to come to an end. Thank
All
you.
right, Siyabonga Khaya, thanks so much. Last caller, Matt in Joburg. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. Look, my take on this whole situation is that I feel that as South Africans, we've kind of drifted backwards, and I agree with the previous caller from the one that was on now, on the fact that something like this that is sensationalized over a media platform has sparked such hatred and racism that we knew was there already, let's be honest, but at the same time it's just a perpetuating cycle that doesn't seem to end. There's always some new story. Now it's getting ridiculous, the fact that it's something that like someone that represents the country, like in that particular like field, you know what I mean? And as South Africans, I feel that because we have this
hang up,
like, uniqueness of the internet, that we should actually take this into consideration and actually move forward. And it's wrong that it's sensationalized in this fashion. Like it's not right that someone has to suffer because
yeah, Matt, we really appreciate your call. Thanks so much to Khaya, Malendi Nisi, and Mama Popa, and Obabu Kumal, and everybody that called. Very briefly, Botsana, if we deal with the issue of the hang-ups that we have of apartheid, and Shirley saying that, you know, it's as if we're going backwards as opposed to trying to embrace the social cohesion and Rainbow Nation. Another caller suggesting that perhaps she should be what's the word? Revoke her throne, as it were. I mean, it's really a little bit excessive, I think. But what is your response generally to our callers? What the whole idea that we're inciting racism, be it on social media or just in the way we engage with the different races?
Cindy, we are in a dynamic world today. Social media, it's another country. You know, we cannot undermine social media. It has influenced elections in the US. It has revealed things in the ANC policy conference in the last 2 days. So we cannot ignore it. But the first caller, now she's standing up and she's saying, Cindy, you are brown and I'm not white, I'm cream. That's absolute nonsense. In this country, we are black and we are white, and we cannot run away from that. There's no brown and cream. Biko tried to deal with that, and unfortunately, he was silenced in dealing with the brown and the cream color. But again, one of the caller, I think, from the Ekurhuleni, is mentioning a simple thing, and I was going to talk about it. Miss South Africa could have done this thing very simple. If it was for hygienic purpose, they should have used sanitizers. I carry a sanitizer in my car, or I use the glove. A sanitizer, nobody would have seen it. You clean your hands before, you clean them after, and then it doesn't cause such a storm. That's what you could have done. But again, South African must be honest and realistic. This issue of Miss South Africa, whereby a girl or a beauty queen from Alexander in the squatter camp is contesting with a beauty queen from Stellenbosch or Orania. That's where the problem is, that we are an unequal society, that we are forcing and trying so much to demonstrate to the world that we are a rainbow nation, we are equal. And that's not going to work. Such things will pop up. Young people in social media will pick up such things. I would have not seen this, but because of people are picking up on small things that exposes our fake democracy, our fake equal nation, such things will happen, and they should avoid, you know.
But there's an opportunity, sorry to rush you, an opportunity to also deal and ventilate with what you refer to as a fake rainbow nation, so that we get to a level of appreciating each other with required respect, regardless of our different perspectives.
Exactly. But that can only be done once we arrive at the point where we are in equal society in terms of jobs, in terms of land ownership, in terms of political, dominance and all that. I've said to people, I go to supermarkets in South Africa, and I've used Spar, unfortunately, as an example. You find a white person who has standard 8, and you find a teller who has a BCom degree. Such things, they fuel, racism in the country. You go and you look at, I've said to people, I've never seen a white person climbing a scaffolding in South Africa, building roads and stadiums. Why? They're always supervisors, independent of qualification. Racial lines are still drawn between the color line, and we cannot ignore that. That's what we must address first. Black people must be given back their dignity. They must be given back their humanity in order to can compete with white people on humanitarian level.
All right, as always, much appreciated for your insights. That's Botsang Moiloa, political analyst, and we're joined on the line by Thulaganyo Modisane, an educator, author, and speaker. And you, our most valued panelists, thanks indeed for participating. We'll take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.